Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. So this is the information session for the 2 affordable townhomes that are being offered at Townhomes on the Green at Redbrook in Plymouth. And so the purpose of this information session is to share a little bit of background information about the homes and also to cover the application, eligibility, and lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery. So as you came into the meeting, you were muted just to make sure that any outside noise is kept to a minimum. But if you have any questions, you can go ahead and either type them into the chat function in Zoom, or you can unmute yourself and just ask the question. So it is a live session. It's being recorded, and it will be available for anyone who wants to view it after the fact as well. And then if you're viewing this after the fact right now and you have any questions for us, the best way to get in touch, or the quickest way to get in touch with us, is to contact us at info@sebhousing.com. So that info is on your screen there now. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable condos and conduct the information session, collect and review applications as they come in to determine a household's eligibility for the affordable housing program, and then also to run the lottery. We're not part of the sales team for the affordable units. We haven't seen them in person, but in the initial phases, we're going to be your main point of contact rather than the sales team. Further along in the process, though, you will have more direct contact with the sales team if you're invited to move forward towards purchasing one of the townhomes. So there's a few steps in the process that I'll be describing for you. The first step is to apply for the affordable housing program. So that means submitting your lottery application along with your mortgage pre-approval. We can answer any questions you have during this early stage in the process. We at SEB Housing will do the preliminary review of your application. If you're found to be eligible for the lottery, you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list after that lottery drawing. The second step in the process involves the process of reserving or buying one of the townhomes. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your placement on the waiting list following the lottery. So there's 2 homes available. If there's 10 people on the waiting list, you're going to want to, to have the best chance of being able to close on one of the homes, you would want to be further up the waiting list. But, there could be people ahead of you who pull out of the process or are found to be ineligible. So you never really know. If you haven't already done so, we encourage you to visit our website, sebhousing.com. There is a page specific to this property. If you click on I want to buy and then select Townhomes on the Green, you'll be taken to that page, which has a downloadable version of the application in PDF form, a template of the sample deed rider, which I'll be talking about in a couple minutes, and the information packet. The information packet has a lot of the information that I'm going to be covering during this session, and you're encouraged to review that if you're interested in this opportunity, because I won't have a chance to go over everything that's in there. So if you decide that you're interested in purchasing one of the affordable homes at Redbrook, you would need to complete that lottery application. And then you can submit it to us in one of several ways. So the first page of the application gives you all of these details, but you can email it to us by scanning the information in, the application in, and then sending it to us by email. You could fax it to us. You could send it by regular mail. We do have a physical office in Needham. If you're in that area for any reason, there's a drop box at the office as well. So whatever one of those options works best for you, that's how you can get your application in. We encourage you to get it in early. It's fairly brief. Shouldn't take you too long to complete, because there's no supporting information or documentation that we need from you at this early stage. You just need to fill out the application and then also submit your mortgage pre-approval with the application, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes as well. And then it would be later on in the process that you would be asked to submit, pay stubs and verifications of income and all of that. The applications are due on August 22nd. They need to be delivered or postmarked by that date in order to be considered. And you don't need to be a resident of Plymouth to apply for this lottery. There is no local preference in this lottery. So, regardless of where you live now, you will have the same priority on the waiting list as someone who lives in town or doesn't. So these homes are going to be sold at an affordable price to households with incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. This means that anyone who has a total annual household income that's above those amounts, they will not be eligible for this lottery. The affordable sales price for the 2-bedroom homes is $252,700. And there is an HOA fee. You can see on your screen now, so on all of our marketing documentation, it says that the monthly condo fee is $442. And that is with sewer charges not being taken into consideration. So if you add up the fact that sewer charges will be covered by the HOA, the monthly fees are $555. So I have a note on that, and our marketing materials are going to be updated by tomorrow to reflect that as well. So these prices are significantly lower or below what the market rate homes in the community are selling for. So the market rate homes, the market rate townhomes at Redbrook are going for between about $500,000 to $600,000, around that price point, just to give you an idea of that. So as I said, this is a home ownership opportunity. The 2 townhomes are about a little over 1,600 square feet. There's 2.5 bathrooms in each of those. Some of the home features that might not be in our information packet is that there is central heating and cooling. There's a private deck for each of these townhomes. There's a 2-car garage attached to both of them as well. The Redbrook community, if you're not familiar with it, is a large community kind of in the south portion of Plymouth, South Plymouth, that has amenities such as a YMCA, shops and restaurants, nature trails, that sort of thing. So there's definitely some amenities in the area around there. The affordable price has been calculated with taking into consideration the area median income for the Plymouth/Boston area. So there's a formula that is used, and HUD's Housing and Urban Development area median income is used in that formula. Since these are affordable homes, they're going to have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, because these homes will remain affordable even for a second buyer. If you own one of these homes for 10, 15, 20 years and you sell it to someone else, it will still need to be resold as an affordable home. So just to give you an idea of what is in that deed rider. So the deed rider, first, it limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So this opportunity wouldn't be for you if you're looking to buy, flip, resell the home in a year or two. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to sell the property for more than what you pay for it, but it would, like I said, need to be resold to another affordable buyer. So the state agency that oversees this affordable housing program would be involved in your sale and all of that. So you could have some return on your investment, but you wouldn't expect the same appreciation that market rate homes might have in the future. And there is a formula for resale that is listed in the last page of the information packet as well. Secondly, on the deed rider, it mentions that this townhome would need to be your primary residence. So generally, you can't rent it out as an investment property like an Airbnb or something like that. And then another highlight of the deed rider is that if you'd like to refinance or make capital improvements, like an addition or something like that, the state would need to approve that. Because these are brand new homes, many of you may not be thinking about that or anything, but just have a look at that deed rider when you're filing it later on in the process, just to make sure that your mortgage, the bank that you're getting a mortgage from, they're going to need to make sure that they are able to accept all of the limitations of the deed rider. And so speaking of that, I mentioned the mortgage pre-approval that is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. we suggest that if you are interested in this opportunity and you haven't got your application in yet, in the information packet, I believe it's page 8 of the information packet, it lists the mortgage pre-approval standards for this housing opportunity. So we just kind of suggest that everyone, if you're going to get a mortgage product or a mortgage pre-approval from a bank, you bring that page. So page 8 of the information packet, you just bring it with you to show the lender, because you want to be sure that the mortgage that you're being offered is going to meet the necessary standards for this affordable housing program. And then also a sample deed rider for them. So that's also available on the website listing for Townhomes on the Green. It's another PDF that you can download from our website. You want the bank to see that as well, because some of those stipulations in the deed rider can be problematic for certain banks or lenders. Certain loans won't accept all the terms of a deed rider. For example, the loan has to be a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept the deed restriction. So you don't want to be in a position where you have your mortgage pre-approval, but that's only because the bank didn't know about these restrictions associated with the affordable housing program. So, you can go to whichever bank you would like to get your mortgage pre-approval and ultimately your mortgage commitment later on in the process. But we also like to let people know that in our experience, it's been difficult, possibly impossible, to have Bank of America as a lender for the affordable housing program. It seems like their products are not conducive to the affordable housing program. So you can use any bank you want, but you want to make sure that the person that you're working with has experience with affordable housing. And with that said, there is a link in our on page 8 again of our information packet that has a link to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership. So that's a agency that does a lot of different things, but it has a resource in there for you to find a lender that is familiar with affordable housing. And when you go in there, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of lenders that you could choose from that MHP has vouched for. So the mortgage pre-approval as well, it also states that you have to provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price. Half of that, so 1.5% of the purchase price, has to come from your own funds. You might have someone gifting you part of the down payment, or you might have a program that is assisting with some of the funds, but 1.5% needs to come from your own funds. So your mortgage can be for up to 97% of the purchase price. Before I move on to eligibility for the affordable housing program, does anyone have any questions on the application process or anything I've already talked about? All right, so the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program is what I'm going to talk about next. So there's 4 eligibility requirements. These are in the information packet as well. But the first is that everyone in your household needs to qualify as a first-time home buyer. And what the program defines that as, I'll talk about in a few minutes, just because that's the actual term they use. There are some exceptions to that, but even households who qualify for one of the first-time homebuyer exceptions would need to have sold their home prior to closing on an affordable home at Townhomes on the Green. The second is that, and we're going to talk a lot more about this too, but a household's income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and assets that are on your screen now. And then third, you have to be pre-approved for a mortgage. So you're going to submit the mortgage pre-approval with your application. And then fourth, this doesn't come up very often, but applicants can't have financial interest in the development or be a related party. And what a related party is defined as by the program is, if you work for the developer or the sales team, for example, you wouldn't be eligible for this opportunity. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria, so the first-time home buyer definition, a first-time home buyer for this program is a household whose members are all considered first-time home buyers, and that means that they haven't within the last 3 years owned a home. So this includes joint ownership. So if a household member was on the deed to a home along with like a ex-partner or spouse, you were still considered to be a owner of that home. There's 5 exceptions to the first-time homebuyer rule, and these are in the information packet. 3 of them that come up most often I'll just highlight now. So the first is something that someone that the program refers to as a displaced homemaker. So that's someone who hasn't worked outside of the home, but has worked to care for the home or family and owned a home with their partner, but no longer owns the home due to a recent divorce or legal separation. So you're no longer on the home's deed, but you did own a home in the last 3 years. You might still be eligible for this opportunity. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of a child, or someone who's pregnant and is now displaced because of a family breakup who's looking for a new home. And then the third exception that comes up most often is an age-qualified household. So that applies to someone who's a household who has a member over the age of 55. That person is currently selling or has already sold a home that they owned because they want to now purchase an affordable property. So all of those exceptions, those people could have owned a home within the last 3 years, but they would still be eligible for this opportunity if they're off the deed and no longer own the home that they're referring to. So even if you qualify for one of those exceptions, you just want to make sure that you're currently off the deed of that property. Because if you're still on the deed of the property, you won't be eligible. And so since these are affordable condos, like I said, they're only going to be made available to households who have a total annual household income that's below these amounts here. So if you're a one-person household and your total household income is $90,000, that's great. You'll be under the $92,650 cap for this program. If you're a two-person household, if your total household income is $100,000, you will be under the maximum income limits for the program. If you're over them, you unfortunately would not be eligible. And how we calculate your income, even though you don't need to submit pay stubs or anything like that at this point, I do want to give you a little bit of a basic overview of how we are going to calculate your income. So income for the program is a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So all income for household members are included. The only exceptions to that are minors. So if you have someone under the age of 18 who's earning a wage, or you have a 16-year-old who's working a part-time job, we're not going to count any of those wages towards your total household income. The other exception is a dependent full-time student. So maybe you have a college student living with you, a 21-year-old, for example, that's working, but they're still considered a dependent in your household. We would only be counting the first $480 of their annual wages towards your total household income. So if you have someone in your household that fits under those categories, it wouldn't be the full amount, and possibly none of their wages would be counted. We do have to count gross income, so the amount you make before taxes, although most of us are not taking home the full paycheck that you might see. It is the gross amount that we need to count according to the program guidelines. And then how we calculate your income is not one size fits all. So everyone's income circumstances are unique. Some applicants are going to have a weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year, but other people are self-employed or working seasonally. In those circumstances, we might need to look further into the past to be able to project what your anticipated income will be for the next 12 months. So we might need to ask for more pay stubs or just more information from you if you have like per diem or part-time employment that isn't or is maybe a little bit sporadic. And then specifically for anybody who's self-employed, you are going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation for your expenses for your business. So just keep that in mind. We have a sample profit and loss statement at the end of the application that you would be able to fill out. And then in general, any income that you have been making, we need to assume that you'll continue making it going forward unless we have some sort of definitive documentation that it's ended. So If you had 2 jobs on your tax returns from last year, we are going to be asking about both of those jobs. So there might, need to be a letter from your employer or some sort of information showing that you're no longer there. And so when you're filling out your application, just make sure that you're filling out all of the income that's coming into your household. So not just wages, but if you have anyone in the household who's receiving Social Security payments or unemployment, pension, that sort of thing, make sure that that is written down. There's no minimum income requirements for this lottery, but in order to qualify for a mortgage at the bank, you're going to need to meet the lender's requirements to get that mortgage pre-approval. So just keep that in mind. And then in terms of assets, there's also an asset limit for this opportunity. So applicants can't have a total of more than $75,000 in assets at the time of your application. That includes any funds that you might be saving up for a future down payment. So if you have someone who is gifting you part of your down payment, that is going to count towards your assets. Any cash you have in savings or checkings account, CDs, the net value of any stocks or retirement funds like 401ks. You might think it's a little strange that we need to count 401k or 403b money because that money is tied up in accounts that you may not be able to access or may not be planning to access for decades. But since you could, in theory, access the amount with a withdrawal penalty, we do still need to count the post-penalty amount of the asset. So you would be asked to get a letter from the financial institution that holds your 401k or 403b, for example, to confirm what that post-penalty amount would be if you were to liquidate the asset. And then any income or interest that your assets are making would be counted towards your total household income. Most people don't have too much of that. We don't need documentation related to personal assets, though, like a car or jewelry or anything like that. Any questions on the eligibility part of it in terms of how we're calculating income? If not, I'm going to move on to the lottery, kind of the lottery process and the waiting list and all of that. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested, we encourage you to get your application in to start the process. We'll review your application and contact you if any information appears to be missing or if we're confused by anything that we're reading. If you're found to be eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number, and that will be in the form of A.005, for example. And that's just an anonymous identifier, so it's not a ranking of any sort. It just corresponds with the order in which we approved your application. So if you were the first person to have submit an approved application for Redbrook, you're going to have the lottery application number of A.001. On your application too, you indicated whether or not you were a type 1 or type 2 household. So all household types can apply for these homes, but type 2 households are going to have priority for the 2-bedroom condos. So that means that all type 2 households are going to have higher positions or more favorable positions on the waiting list than type 1 households. So if you're a 1-person household and you don't have a medical need for 2 bedrooms, you're going to be below under the larger households that are considered type 2 households. Yeah, there's additional information in the information packet on household composition, just if you're not sure what category you would fall into based on your number of people in your household and the relationships to them. Real quick, this is kind of off topic, but the tax rate, this comes up a lot for questions, so I just wanted to let you know. For the taxes for this property, based off of the 2025 Plymouth tax rate, the estimated annual taxes for the home would be about $3,200 based off of what the amount per $1,000 is. So the amount is the tax the annual taxes are based off of the affordable sales price and not the market rate sales price, which is good. All right, so back to the lottery. So the lottery, the application deadline is August 22nd. The lottery itself is going to be held virtually, just like this, in a Zoom format on September 9th at 6 o'clock at night. And we'll create the waiting list shortly after that lottery drawing. The top households will be invited by, the top households on the waiting list will be invited by SCB Housing to move forward to reserve one of the condos, secure your mortgage commitment, and then close and purchase the home. And every lottery number during this drawing will be chosen. So it's not, you know, if there's two homes, it doesn't mean we draw two numbers on the night of the lottery, because it's very likely that the first two people on the waiting list may not work out because they're either found to be ineligible or they decide that they're no longer interested, for example. So everyone is going to have a position on the waiting list. And if the top two people do not end up purchasing the homes, we move further down. So basically the drawing is held for us to establish a order of priority for those waiting lists. So if you're watching the night of the lottery, you're not going to know exactly where you fall on the waiting list during that lottery drawing, because I still will need to sort the result of the drawing. So for example, if a type 1 household is drawn first in the lottery, they're not going to be first on the waiting list because they're still going to be behind all type 2 households. So just keep that in mind. And if your lottery number is drawn maybe 4th or 5th or even further down on the waiting list, it doesn't mean, again, that you will not be asked to move forward in the process at some point. It just means that people ahead of you on the waiting list would need to drop off and before you were contacted to move forward. So like I said, the waiting list will be sent to you. You don't have to attend the lottery, but if you don't attend the lottery, or if you do, either way, you're going to be emailed within the same evening as the lottery with attachments. One of the attachments is going to be a PDF of the waiting list. So you'll be able to find your lottery application number on those waiting lists to have a better idea of whether or not you're going to be moving forward in the process right away. And if you are moving along in the process and you're one of the top households on the waiting list, you're going to be asked to submit all of your income information to SCB Housing so we can confirm your program eligibility before sending your file off to the state agency, who also needs to approve you. So you'll have about a week to get all of that information into SCB Housing. We'll work with you. You know, if you submit most of the documentation at first and you need more time for the next one, that's fine. We would just be sending a incomplete notice to you and just kind of working with you to get that complete application. And then, like I said, if you're ultimately found to be eligible by SCB Housing, our next step is going to be to send all of your information, your file, off to the state agency that oversees the Affordable Housing Program, which is EOHLC. So that's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. They're going to do a file review as well and give us the green light on whether or not you're eligible to move forward to the next step in the process. And then we like to mention too, if at any point you want to hire an attorney to assist you with navigating through the process, we encourage you to do that. That would be the time to do it once you've been approved by both SCB Housing and the state. You just want to make sure, you know, this is obviously a huge decision to buy a property, so you want to make sure you understand the process and you just feel as though you're well represented. So once EOHLC has approved your application, we're gonna put you in touch with the developer or the sales team, and you'll be able to tour the condo if you haven't already, complete a reservation agreement with them or an offer to purchase, and you'll be reserving the home with a $500 refundable deposit. After you reserve the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement, which is one of the last steps in the home buying process. And at that purchase and sale, at the time of purchase and sale, you'll be required to deposit the first 1.5% of the sales price minus that $500 reservation deposit that you already paid. So your purchase and sale agreement is going to include certain agreed upon contingencies. It's also going to have the closing date listed. And like I said, that's one of the final steps in the process. So once that purchase and sale is signed, you'll need to go back to the bank that issued your mortgage pre-approval and obtain a mortgage commitment from them. So every bank process varies a little bit, but generally they're going to want to review all of the documents that you have up until this point. So the deed rider for the affordable housing program, your purchase and sale agreement, they're going to do an appraisal on the condo and so forth. So you'll get your mortgage commitment through them. And then SEB Housing will then need to do a final review of your eligibility before you're able to close. So you have to remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks before your scheduled closing date, we'll conduct that final review. So we would ask for updated pay stubs, bank statements, your mortgage commitment letter that you now have. And if you have maintained your eligibility, we will send your file off to the state again, and the state needs to confirm again as well. And if your eligibility has been maintained, you're still eligible for the affordable housing program at the time that you're looking to close, you're able to go through with closing and move into the townhome. There wouldn't be any future income or asset eligibility reviews once you've closed. So, a question comes up obviously a lot where, what if I get a new job next year and I'm making a lot more money, or if someone moves into, if I have a child or if I get married, none of that would disqualify you for continuing to live in the home. You've already closed on it. Again, you would just need to remember that when you go to sell the home eventually, it would need to be, there's a kind of a process that the state would need to be involved in that is outlined in the deed rider and the paperwork that you would be completing. Yep, so a question here, what's the mortgage amount again? And the HOA is around $520. So the mortgage amount needs to be no more than 97% of the sales price. So that's because you're putting 3% down. And the first 1.5% of your 3% down needs to be committed at your purchase and sale, and then the other 1.5% at closing. And then the HOA, yeah, so the HOA, we had it on our materials as $442, but that is not the amount that you would actually be paying. My understanding is the amount that you'd actually be paying to the Homeowners Association will be $555, but that's because the sewage charges are going to be included. So it is $555, I believe, per month, because this initial amount here did not take into consideration that sewer charges are also included in the HOA. So that really covers what I wanted to get through. Does anybody have any other questions on, anything I didn't mention or anything I did mention? The lottery application, like I said, for the affordable townhomes are on our website. If you go to sebhousing.com and go to affordable housing opportunities and I want to buy, since this is a home ownership opportunity, you're going to see the page for townhomes on the green at Redbrook. And there's a PDF of the lottery application and then a PDF of the sample deed rider that you're going to want to show to the bank when you are looking to get your mortgage commitment or your mortgage pre-approval, I should say. So mortgage is roughly below $2,000. So I don't know what your mortgage would be per month. The bank would be determining that with you, and it depends on your finances and all of that. But the amount total would be, you couldn't have a mortgage that was for more than 97% of the purchase price, which is the $252,700. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the amount would actually be for each person. Anything else? like I said, the application deadline is August 22nd, so you've got almost a month to get the information into us. And then if we have any questions on your application or finances or anything like that, we will let you know all of that.
How do you get a copy of the transcript or a recording from this meeting?
Yep. So the recording is going to be on our website after I post it to our YouTube channel, but you can also go to SEB Housing's YouTube channel and find it there. So the recording will be there.
Could you slowly say the address again?
The address for what?
The website. The website.
Oh, the website. Yep. So it's just SEB as in boy. So www.sebhousing.com. I'm going to put it in the chat now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. We look forward to getting your application. If you have any questions, if you're watching this after the fact and you have any questions as well, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com. And yeah, we look forward to getting your application. Thank you for your interest and have a good evening.